9 shocking new Ruby Frank revelations from recently released documentary.
This tragedy isn't something that you can just put easy and clean labels on. It's a very complex story.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door. He's got duct taped around each ankle. He's obviously covered in wounds.
Frankie, how do you plead to count 1, child abuse?
Guilty.
To count 3, child abuse?
With my deepest regret and sorrow for my family and my children. Guilty.
Frankie's story is a haunting cautionary tale of a once-adored mommy vlogger who now faces up to 30 years in prison for child abuse. So, how did her family's seemingly perfect online life spiral into a nightmare of manipulation, faith, and unthinkable cruelty? Let's dive into the disturbing details from the new Hulu documentary Devil in the Family, The Fall of Ruby Frankie. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Lava Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Before we jump into the story, I have something exciting to share with you. At Lava Crime, we're launching a brand new channel dedicated to exposing the darker side of fame. It's called Scandal by Lava Crime. We'll be covering the wildest celebrity crimes, lawsuits, and the disturbing rumors swirling around the celebrity world. Go subscribe now to stay up to date with all the latest Hollywood scandals. The link to the channel is in the description. Now, let's get back to the story. The 3-part Hulu documentary, Devil in the Family. The Fall of Ruby Frankie has completely captivated audiences with its in-depth exploration of how a once-celebrated YouTube mommy vlogger became convicted of child abuse. Directed by Ollie Lambert and produced by Passion Pictures, the series dives deep into the shocking story of Ruby Frankie and her shocking descent from internet fame to notoriety. The series uncovers a tale of control, faith, and the darker side of life lived in the public eye. Let's recap some of the most disturbing details of this tragic documentary to understand how this could have happened. Ruby Frankie, the former face of the popular YouTube channel 8 Passengers, was arrested in August 2023 along with her business partner Jody Hildebrandt, a therapist and life coach. Both later pleaded guilty to 4 counts of aggravated child abuse for mistreating 2 of Frankie's children. Ruby and Jody were sentenced last year to 4 consecutive terms of 1 to 15 years in prison. In her own words, Ruby admitted, "For the past 3 years, I followed guidance that led me down a dark path. My twisted view of reality went unchecked as I isolated myself from anyone who challenged me. I believed the world was evil, filled with cops, controlling hospitals, corrupt government agencies, false church leaders, unprotective husbands, and children who needed abuse. My choice to live in this paranoid delusion led to criminal acts for which I now stand before you, deeply regretful for my family and my children." The documentary, which premiered on February 27th, features never-before-seen footage from the Frankie family's YouTube channel, as well as interviews with Ruby's estranged husband Kevin and 2 of her oldest children, Sherry and Chad. This 3-episode series abundance, distortion, and truth dives into how Ruby's belief system and the influences of Jody Hildebrandt led the family to the breaking point. In the first episode, we are immediately introduced to the disturbing reality of the abuse happening behind closed doors. The episode opens with chilling Ring camera footage showing Ruby's 12-year-old son escaping from Jody Hildebrandt's home. The child, emaciated and restrained with duct tape around his ankles, sought help from a neighbor, who then called 911. The child was covered in wounds, and the situation was dire. This moment sets the stage for the horrific events to come. The documentary reveals how Ruby's obsession with controlling her family's behavior on camera led to severe consequences. In one chilling outtake, Ruby snaps at her young daughter, "Just be yourself." When the child responds, "That is myself," Ruby coldly replies, "Well, then change it." Kevin describes Ruby's belief that love is obedience, and that disobedience would result in fear. Chad, Ruby's eldest son, speaks out in the documentary, recalling how the family's image was more of a performance than real life. He reveals that when he resisted filming, he was punished severely, including being forced to sleep on a beanbag for months and subjected to physical abuse. He recounts painful memories, such as being whipped by Ruby with a belt. As the documentary progresses, it delves into the growing influence of Jody Hildebrandt, who moved in with the Frankie family during the COVID-19 pandemic. Jody convinced Ruby and Kevin that the world was ending and that they needed to stockpile supplies to survive. She claimed to be haunted by shadowy figures and convinced Ruby and Kevin that she was called by God to help them. Kevin describes the bizarre changes in their home, where Jody would go into trances, speaking in different voices, and Ruby believed it was her calling to help Jody overcome these evil spirits. Sherry, one of Ruby's children, became the first to question Jody's influence. She discovered that Jody was not a licensed therapist, as she had claimed, and had a troubled past, including ruining families. However, Ruby dismissed her concerns. The documentary even shows footage of Jody's disturbing behavior, including moments where she appeared to be in a trance, speaking to herself in agonizing ways. Ruby's journal entries, read aloud in the documentary, reveal her disturbing beliefs, such as viewing her two youngest children as demon-possessed. She wrote about forcing one child to stand in the sun, shaving her daughter's head, and refusing to feed them. In the final episode, Truth, the documentary explores the aftermath of Ruby's arrest, the abuse discovered by authorities, and Ruby's guilty plea to 4 counts of aggravated child abuse. Kevin, after being estranged from the family, filed for divorce in November 2023, citing the irreparable damage to their family. Yet, despite everything, Kevin expressed conflicted emotions, admitting that he still misses Ruby and the life they once had together. Chad, now 20, believes that Ruby should remain in prison until all the children reach adulthood, but he admits that he still misses the mother he once knew. Sherry, now 21, has become an advocate for stricter regulations on family vlogging, vowing never to speak to her mother again. Devil in the Family is more than just a true crime documentary. It serves as a stark warning about the dangers of social media fame and the performative nature of online life. This story is a sobering reminder of the real consequences when families expose their lives to the public. As Kevin Franke told ABC News, there are real dangers when you place your family and children on social media, and the consequences can be devastating.
A lot of the physical violence that was described was hidden and kept from me. I didn't even know that those things happened, and I think Ruby was really careful to hide a lot of that from me. As far as the things like sleeping on a beanbag, removing Chad from sports teams and things, all of those directives came from Jody, the licensed mental health counselor. I definitely voiced my opposition and concern, and it was always flipped back onto me of saying, well, you know, this is why your children are disobedient. This is why you're having problems with your children, because you just enable them all the time. You're the problem, Kevin.
When you work with a licensed therapist who is giving you advice, and you know you've trusted her for 5 years, and you know, at first it was great advice, and you know I felt like she did a really good job with me. But you know, when you build a relationship for 5 years, and when it gets to the point where your mom also trusts her more than she trusts her husband. For my dad, I understand that, you know, in order to get his family back and to not run into problems with my mom and our therapist, you know, he had to obey her rules and follow each step.
I think it's relatively easy for somebody out there who's, you know, armchairing this and looking at this experience going, well, why didn't he just do that? I would have done that. If, you know, it was day number 1 and Jody came to me and said, yeah, you know, you're selfish. You need to go into separation and repent. I would have told her to take a hike. Yeah. I would have been like, you're crazy. And I did say that in the first time I was introduced to Jody's program. But you have to remember, and these individuals have to remember, that this was now, you know, I was 2.5 years in this program now, and Jody doesn't start from day 1 saying stuff like that. She gets her hooks into you and slowly begins to indoctrinate you and condition you to believe things about yourself and to willingly give power to other people because you come to believe that you yourself aren't capable of making good decisions. When that was suggested to me after all of that indoctrinating and conditioning, at the time it seemed like, oh, you're right, okay. But You know, again, I understand for somebody who wasn't in it that it would seem strange. There was that coercion and flipping it back onto me, the gaslighting, that I was like, okay, well, maybe I am wrong. Maybe this is the right way to parent. But I know that there's a lot of sentiment out there, and you know, I think I want to address this very directly and very clearly. One of the things that I've been so upset about with the popular media's narrative of this experience is how they've collapsed the timeline. And they've taken the events of 2023, which were criminal, which were atrocious and horrific, and they've just smashed them all the way back into previous years, and extrapolated and assumed that those types of criminal activities were occurring years before Jody entered our family, and that's just simply not true. The criminal physical stuff happened after Jody came into the picture, and the severe and the strict consequences and outcomes came after Jody came into the picture. Ruby herself, though, was throughout our marriage, she took a very strict stance when it came to parenting. Yeah. And I think she learned a lot of that from her own parents and her own family. The rules, the boundaries of the separation were completely defined by my former wife, Ruby, and by Jody. What made it difficult was, they could cross the boundary anytime they wanted to, and that was okay. That was, quote unquote, in truth. But if I were to seek, even attempt to cross that boundary, that was an evidence that I was being selfish, that I was unsafe, and that likely my marriage would have ended. Well, Ruby had a few communications with me. I don't recall anymore the exact number of times, but it was always around logistics. Some neighbors and things and early on in the separation would reach out when they started to realize, whoa, what are you doing? As I'm sure Chad can share his perspective as well. We were both really indoctrinated that we needed complete isolation in order to heal, and that if we were interacting with anybody that was contrary to the messaging that Jody, the other men in Connections, and Ruby wanted us to accept and ingest, then we were being selfish.
I was also required to move out of the house and never contact my siblings, never go back home. So it's funny because a couple people did reach out. A neighbor saw me riding my bike to school and to work, and she felt so bad because she realized I was a minor. I was 17, out living on my own, and so she offered to buy me a car, and I really wanted to take that up, but Jody, who's my therapist and I trusted and loved, at that point, she wanted me to live a very physical, straining and mental straining life while I was out there. That was her mindset when it came to repentance and changing, is put yourself through as much pain as possible. So that was a really hard year, physically and emotionally, not being able to have any family for that long and no contact at all. And
that right there, what Chad just expressed, is the common theme in these separations that Jody recommends and that she would tell us to do as her treatment. She insisted that we subject ourselves to pain and discomfort, and in pain and discomfort would be what would change us, what would make us stronger. This documentary is an excellent project that will give people a much closer view of the real story. But even the documentary can only cover so much in 3 episodes. There's much more that I hope to share in the future, and help people understand about this experience. A lot of people will look at me and say, how could he ever do that? I would never do that. But, for those who respectfully ask me about that and say, how could you? My response to that is, well, who do you love more than anybody? And sometimes it's a child, sometimes it's a spouse, they say, and I say, well, what would happen if that individual that you love more than anybody started to go a different way and was inviting you and encouraging you? Would you just easily be able to let them go, easily be able to say, you're out of my life, goodbye? And that really gets people thinking. And so, I want people to really think about that. Another thing that I hope people think about after watching this is the role that social media and the internet plays in our lives today, and how it really fanned the flames of this story and spread it like wildfire, the truths and the falsities of it. The dangers that can come when you place yourself or your family or your children into the public spotlight on social media. There's a lot of incentives out there today to do that, but I hope that people really stop and recognize, is this really what's best for my kids? Not just financially, but emotionally and psychologically. The things that you see that are concerning in the documentary, such as the sternness, the yelling at the kids to get them to comply, and the filming and those kinds of things. I think a lot of people that aren't familiar with family content creation would look at that and go, that's horrible, that's abusive. And it is abusive. But what I want people to understand is that was not unique to our family. I don't know a single family content creator that did not have interactions like that with their children.
Yeah, and I can testify the same. I mean, we would go on, big YouTube trips, and there would be so many family vloggers there with so many kids and cameras out, and the stuff that my mom did behind the scenes, like yelling or get back in place or say that again, or the sternness, that wasn't just my mom as well. I mean, a lot of vloggers and parents who are putting their kids on camera, they act the exact same. They want their kids to repeat something, they want their kids to act a certain way, they want them in a certain spot, and since they're their kids, they can be a little more stern and raise their voice. So those behind the scenes that everyone is seeing, that it kind of scares them, it's not uncommon.
Fake being happy. Okay? I don't know if I can right now.
One of the reasons we were willing to give the raw footage to the production team for this documentary was to get this point across. And one of the biggest fears, if not the biggest fear of any family content creator on social media today, is having their raw footage somehow leaked, and so that people can see what really goes on behind the camera. These individuals are wanting everyone to believe that their content is uplifting and wholesome and pure, and sure, the final product appears that way, but the making of the sausage, it's ugly.
I definitely hate the things she did, and I feel like I'm also a very lighthearted person in a sense where I would never wish someone to have a bad life, or what I really hope is that from here she becomes a better person and that she works on that and she truly tries to change. I have no contact with her right now, and I don't plan to anytime soon, but then again, she's still blood, she's still my mom, and maybe down the road eventually I'll have like a conversation with her and maybe eventually have a relationship where we can just talk. But when it comes to her actually being a mom and then eventually a grandma, I don't think I'll ever have that kind of close relationship again. It's hard, of course, but I mean, when I go home, I feel like, no one's missing. I don't really feel like I wish mom was here. I don't really have those feelings really at all. It doesn't feel wrong not having her in my home, and that's okay. So I feel like I'm in a good spot even though she's not here.
The last letter that I received from her from prison was maybe in March or April of last year, and then I requested the Department of Corrections to ask her to stop writing me. I didn't want to hear anymore. I didn't like what she was saying. And I'm not going to share that, that's between her and me, but it just didn't feel right, and it didn't feel good. And I'm very angry. I'm still very angry. And I need space, and I need time. So I don't know, but I can't imagine being in prison is enjoyable or easy. So I really can't comment beyond that. Point is that she's where she's at, and she's going to be there for a long time. And I genuinely hope that she gets the help that she needs, and isn't just abandoned in some hole, because I really believe that she was damaged severely by swallowing the teachings that Jody just was serving up for her. Do I still feel hurt and pain and grief and sadness and sorrow when I think about what we had and what was lost? Yeah. Do I miss those happy moments and years and years of good memories? I do. And I'm not ashamed to say that, after being married over 20 years to that woman, I truly did and still do love her. But that doesn't excuse what she did, and it doesn't excuse how she hurt our children and how she hurt me. And there's some things there's some bridges that you just can't cross and then cross back. She burned the bridges. As of today, I'm still working through the divorce. We're trying to reach a settlement. It's been a long process, well over a year, but it's ongoing. I'm still technically married, and so I'm holding off until the divorce is finalized. But I'm grateful for some friendships that I have, and I've gotten a lot of support from some friendships that I have, and when the time's right, that's something I think that I'll look forward to pursuing. As a family, we're progressing and healing.
I moved in with him like a month or two right after the arrest, and that was suggested by a couple close friends because we were separate for so long. So they thought it would be good if we reconnected by just living together again, and eventually it felt like we were roommates. So I moved out because I turned 19 and 20 and I wanted my own space. So, but yeah, it's great. We have a ton of pets now, and every Sunday we put them all together, and it's like we have a zoo. Yeah.
We started our own family tradition of family dinner on Sundays, and
Sherry comes over, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. I definitely didn't think my life would be like this, especially after hearing the news about everything that happened. I didn't expect that to happen at all, but from here, where I'm at now, I feel like I expect good things out of the future, and if anything else were to happen, and what I mean is just like adversity and different challenging parts of life, I feel like I am more prepared for those to come now that I've been through something difficult.
Life right now for me is getting back into I would say a comfortable normal. There's still a lot of pain, there's still a lot of healing that I work on each day, but it just looks and feels different now. I'm moving on, and I'm going to do what's best for my children, for my family, and for myself, and that's not going to include her.